How's it going, guys? I'm an avid herpetologist. Today we're going to be revisiting another deck that I keep up with on this channel from format to format, and that is going to be Aegisdramon, with some updates being made to it for BT15. Now, Aegisdramon, just like MegaSeadramon, has been getting little bits of support here and there over the last couple of sets, and we've got some really cool new updates we're able to make in this current set thanks to a new line thanks to the Dark Master MetalSeadramon. Now, spoiler, we are not going to be playing the new Dark Master MetalSeadramon, but that doesn't mean we aren't still going to be able to update the list with a couple of new support cards. Aegisdramon is a deck that I honestly have felt is close to meta relevant, but just doesn't have the speed or the consistency, or honestly, in the end of the day, really the power to quite make it into the top meta tables. But with the coming sets, we're actually getting a whole new support line in EX6, so the deck does have quite a few things to look forward to as the sets roll along, but BT15 did deliver a couple of really nice quality of life updates for this deck, so I wanted to go over those real quick, just kind of show you guys where my Aegisdramon list is for this coming format. This is still a deck that if you get good with it, it's still not a super easy deck to play. It's kind of weird with how some of the play patterns can play out, but it is still a deck that can make some really nice power plays and can be very aggressive if you build your lists correctly. So we're going to go ahead and get into my personal list for BT15, talk about some of the new cards that we have running for us, and kind of where the future of the deck is going to be looking as we roll into those future sets. So with that quick preamble out of the way, let's get into the list. Alright, let's go ahead and get into our deck list here. So for those who are unfamiliar with the Aegisdramon archetype, basically the whole principle of the deck is you're going to be playing Digimon out of your Digivolution sources as extra bodies on the field. It's a pretty unique archetype, and there's some really cool plays the deck is able to create as a result of that. There's actually a surprising number of cards that synergize pretty well with that playstyle, and we're still getting more, as I mentioned, as we're moving into EX6. So to begin with, as always, we're going to be looking at our eggs. There's nothing super new in this case. It's going to be the same eggs that we've been playing in our previous list, and that's going to be 4 copies of Bukamon from BT7. Bukamon has a your turn once per turn effect, where when you play a Digimon from one of your Digivolution sources, gain a memory. As to be expected from a memory gain ability, obviously this is going to be helping us extend our plays. We're honestly a pretty memory efficient archetype. There's lots of things that we can do with only a little bit of memory, and being able to make that one extra play can help us get some extra bodies on board, control the field, maybe get extra attacks in. Again, there's lots of different directions to go with it. It's kind of a deck that does take a little bit of getting used to because there are quite a few branching decision trees, just like with MegaSeadramon. So this is a deck that, if you're willing to invest the time to get good with it, it can reward you, but it is a deck that's going to take a little getting used to because the playstyle is kind of a little unusual. But basically what we're going to be doing is basically just trying to get lots of payoffs by playing Digimon from our sources, and one of the first payoffs that we're going to be doing is BT7 Gomamon. We are going to be playing 4 copies. This Gomamon has an on-play effect where if it's played from a Digivolution source, you can draw 2 cards. This is honestly a pretty generous effect. There aren't too many cards that let you just draw 2 so easily like this, and we're able to spam Gomamon multiple times per turn depending on our setup. But one of the new cards that's going to be great for this deck is going to be 4 copies of BT15 Betamon. So Betamon here is 3 to play, 1000 DP. He has an on play. If this card is played by an effect, one of your opponent's Digimon can't attack until the end of their turn, and has a really nice jamming inheritable. Now, jamming is something this deck has really wanted for quite a while. Since we're spamming lots of bodies on the board, but those bodies tend to be smaller, having jamming is basically just going to be able to help us get early aggression without forfeiting all of those bodies that we now have in play. So Betamon is going to be one of our most valuable rookies now. Definitely a fantastic card. Now, it is worth mentioning that the on-play is great for freezing board states up, but do remember that they can still block. Unlike a lot of blue effects that are going to be freezing bodies on the board, this will prevent them from attacking, so it's great defensively, but it is not, however, going to be good for offense. It's not going to prevent things from blocking your bodies, so do just make sure that you keep that in mind. It only goes one way, it does not go both ways. Our next rookie is going to be 4 copies of Crabmon from EX3. Crabmon has an on-play effect to give one of your blue Digimon jamming for the turn. Then, if it was played from a Digivolution source, you can place a blue level 5 or lower Digimon card from your hand under that Digimon as its bottom source. This again is just another great outlet for jamming. Again, making sure that a lot of our early swings are going to be nice and safe. But one of the nice things about Crabmon is even though he doesn't affect your opponent's board state, he does add another body that you can then continue to cheat out. So he's basically a combo enabler in that regard, where you're getting a new body on the board while also adding another round to the chamber, basically, that you can continue to cheat out with other effects. So that's going to pretty much do it for my rookies. We're only going to be playing these 3. Each one of them is very powerful in their own right, and we want to be seeing really each of these as often as we can. But obviously, different rookies are going to be better for different scenarios, but yeah, these are going to create our nice baseline. But we're going to go ahead and move up into our level 4s. Starting off with another new card, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Seadramon from BT15. The Seadramon is incredibly simple. It's 5 to play, 2 to Digivolve, 5000 DP, and has Rush, meaning it doesn't get Summoning Sickness. It also has another generic jamming inheritable, which again, very, very nice. We're getting a lot of redundancy now where we have lots of ways to make sure that our swings are going to be safe, and Seadramon having Rush also means that we can afford to be more aggressive. If we play Betamon out of our sources and have 2 memory, we can of course then go into Seadramon and attack immediately with jamming. So Seadramon is super, super nice to have. Our level 4 slots are getting a little bit crowded. Again, I'm going to be playing 3 copies of Seadramon, but this is one of those cards that you can absolutely afford to play a 4th copy if you really want to. It really just kind of depends on what ratios you're looking for, but let's go ahead and talk about some of our other level 4s just to kind of see what else is going to be supporting this. Beginning with another new card, 3 copies of Promo Seadramon. This was actually released as a box topper in EX5. This Seadramon is 5 to play, 2 to Digivolve, and has 5000 DP. On play or when Digivolving, one of your blue Digimon can't be deleted in battle until the end of your opponent's turn, and has an inheritable, your turn once per turn. When you play a Digimon by effect, one of your Digimon gets Rush. Seadramon Promo has 2 different halves to its effect that you're starting probably to see a pretty common theme here, where we can rush our bodies out and also protect them from battle. Now, this is not technical jamming, but in my opinion, this is actually better jamming. Even though it is temporary, the ability to Digivolve or play this and keep something from being deleted in battle means that, number one, it is going to be safe when it swings into security, but it's also defensive in the sense that your opponent also can't attack over that body on their next turn. So this is going to be a nice way to kind of keep your stacks protected, at least to a certain extent, while you're passing the turns around. But it is worth mentioning this is not going to protect you from effect deletion, so please make sure you are aware of that. Some decks are just going to be able to spot remove your bodies off the board, and there's not going to be a whole lot that you can do to stop that. So know the Seadramon's powers, know its limitations, but again, very good. Having that another source of extra rush is of course going to be helpful for ending our games when we need to. So, yep, 3 copies of Seadramon there. We are also going to be playing 4 copies of Tobiumon. Now, this is actually the only 4 of in our champion slot. It's a generic vanilla, which basically just means it has no effects, but instead is going to be incredibly efficient with its memory resources. It's only 3 to play, 1 to Digivolve, and has 3000 DP. So it's weak, but it's also incredibly cheap. So we can drop this from our hand for the same cost as a typical rookie, or Digivolve for a minimal cost of only 1. Tobiumon being able to Digivolve again onto, for instance, our Betamon or our Crabmon with jamming, getting Rush off of our Promo Seadramon is just another way to get a free check while also setting us up for potential level 5 plays like Kimeramon. So Tobiumon is also still going to have the aquatic creature type, which is basically what we're going to need in order to play out level 4s once we get to our higher level Digimon. So it's kind of a combination of all of these things, that memory efficiency as well as the needed trait, that make Tobiumon a really nice addition to this deck. Even though it doesn't have effects, it does suit the playstyle super well. So 4 copies of Tobiumon for the raw efficiency of it. And speaking of raw efficiency, we are also going to be playing 3 copies of Coelamon from BT5. Coelamon is a member of an old cycle that's been out of the meta for a pretty long time, but at 6 to play, only 1 to Digivolve, has 5000 DP, and is a blocker with a when attacking effect to lose 2 memory. So Coelamon is not here, obviously, to be aggressive. He's here to help us make sure we are not dying on the crackback while we are trying to extend out our large board states. Having a super cheap Digivolution cost on our level 4s, so we can go on top of our rookies and then spam those rookies out a second time to continue playing extra bodies, that's honestly the big mindset here. So if I'm Digivolving into something or cheating a body out, I want to be able to potentially spam that body a second time. So like playing Betamon more than once, drawing extra cards off of Gomamon, those are kind of the mindset that we want to be in. So being able to Digivolve onto our rookies for a single cost is going to be super helpful because that way we can, again, continue our plays without investing a ton of memory. Coelamon is going to be my choice over something like, for instance, Gorillamon, just because we want to be able to have, again, that defensive ability. So he can still attack. He's a great final attacker, so if you are able to check all of your opponent's security, you can then attack with this for game and don't really care about losing into memory. But we also want to make sure, again, that we are not dying while we're trying to establish our board state. So play a rookie out, Digivolve a blocker on top of it, play the rookie out a second time. Now we not only have that extra body, but we have a defensive blocker that we can now use to hopefully redirect or prevent some extra aggression towards us. So 3 copies of Seadramon, 4 copies of Tobiumon, and that is going to wrap it up for our champions. Now we are not playing any hybrids just because we're not playing too many Tamers. We're only playing 2. So that's going to be my reasoning for not playing that. But if you are playing more Tamers, you are more than welcome, of course, to play cards like Omnimon, which is a pretty nice hybrid in this archetype, just because, again, not only does it get jamming, but it also tucks things from your hand. But yeah, in this particular list, no hybrids. This is what we're going to be doing in our level 4 slots. Okay, moving up into our level 5s. We are still playing 4 copies of MegaSeadramon from EX3. MegaSeadramon has a when attacking effect. You can play a blue level 3 Digimon card from one of your blue Digimon sources without paying its cost, and has a very similar inheritable when attacking once per turn. Again, play a blue level 3 Digimon from one of your Digimon sources without paying the cost. MegaSeadramon is definitely one of our best early board builders. Being able to swing, play out a body, and then gain a memory is going to be really nice for setting up our follow-up turns on turns 2 and 3. Most ideally, we want to be able to go into this guy and be able to swing immediately. So if we're not able to do that right away, if we've Digivolved into our rookie and then into our champion, and we don't have enough memory to go into this while also being able to swing, what we're going to want to do is ideally probably just Digivolve this guy in a raising area and wait an extra turn, because we really want to get that immediate value. We want to be able to swing with him, cheat something out, and kind of go from there. Now, we do have plenty of ways to make sure that our MegaSeadramon can survive that early check now, with our jamming from Betamon, jamming from Crabmon, and jamming from Seadramon. So in a perfect world, we, of course, want to be swinging with our MegaSeadramon safely, not losing that stack, so we can follow it up with a level 6, but yeah, so MegaSeadramon is still, as I mentioned, going to be the best way. He's also a great follow-up because, again, he's got that inheritable where our level 6s and 7s can continue to use that same effect to continue aggressively building out our board state, so that's why he's going to be my 4 of. Now, we are going to be playing a complementary level 5, and that is going to be 3 copies of WaruSeadramon. WaruSeadramon is 8 to play, 4 to Digivolve, 8,000 DP. On play or when Digivolving, you can play a purple or blue level 3 Digimon from one of your purple or blue Digimon sources without paying the cost. All turns once per turn. When you play a Digimon by effect, gain a memory. So WaruSeadramon here is okay. He's not great. Being 8 to Digivolve is a little expensive. You will hopefully gain some of that memory back immediately, because playing sources out, ideally we should be gaining memory off of our eggs, but he is still 4 to Digivolve, which is a little bit steep. Now, the fact that he is an on-play or when Digivolving is kind of nice, because that means when we play him out of our sources, he will then immediately get us potentially another body on top of that, so he's kind of a 2-for-1. And he does have that really nice all turns effect that kind of mimics our eggs to a certain extent. But his inheritable is, as I mentioned, an all turns effect. So unlike Bukamon, if we're cheating bodies out on our opponent's turn, we will still gain memory off of that and potentially help steal our turns back. So Waru is pretty decent, but in my opinion, he is on borrowed time. One of the cards that we're actually getting in EX6 is a level 5 that mimics his on-play when Digivolving effect, but is cheaper to Digivolve. So that is going to be a card that, in my opinion, will be practically a strict upgrade. Now, we are also not playing any copies of BT15 MegaSeadramon. MegaSeadramon we'll talk about very briefly. He has an on-play or when Digivolving effect, where when you put him out, you can basically tuck something else that you have in order to get rid of a body on the board, and has an inheritable where you, when attacking, can tuck a body underneath your stack to unsuspend the stack. MegaSeadramon is not bad. My big problem that I have with MegaSeadramon, though, is that he only has 2 effects that get rid of bodies. He doesn't have any effects that add any bodies to the field. So without ways to actually get other bodies out there, his effects are kind of limited. Now, again, going back to the EX6 level 5, that, in my opinion, is a perfect balance between WaruSeadramon and BT15 MegaSeadramon, where the new card is going to be able to play out extra bodies, but it's also going to keep that inheritable from MegaSeadramon to tuck something in order to unsuspend. I think those 2 effects complement each other much better than either of those effects individually, so definitely look forward to EX6. We are going to be doing another deck list in EX6 once we get that new support, and it is honestly going to be a really cool thing to see how that new support affects the power level of Aegisdramon. So yeah, stay tuned for that in EX6, but for the time being, not playing MegaSeadramon. I don't like 2 effects that tuck. Instead, we're going to be playing Waru, which will help us play more bodies out. Now, wrapping up our level 5s, we are playing 2 copies of Kimeramon from BT8. Kimeramon is 8 to play, digivolves for 4 from any color, and has 8000 DP. It has a DNA Digivolution requirement that lets you use any 2 level 4s of any color. When digivolving, you can place a level 5 or lower Digimon card from your trash under this Digimon as its bottom source, then give up to 4 of your opponent's Digimon minus 1000 DP until the end of your opponent's turn for each color Kimeramon has. It also has a Your Turns effect. This Digimon is treated as having the colors of all Digivolution cards in its sources, and if it happens to get 4 colors or more, it gets an extra 4000 DP. Kimeramon is basically in here, of course, to be a closer. This is our version of our hybrid for game. We want to be able to check all of our opponent's security, hopefully safely, and then go into our Kimeramon in order to potentially end the game. But this is also fantastic for board control. Thanks to our WaruSeadramon, we are able to hit our threshold of 3 colors, which can help us deal with potentially troublesome floodgates. Things like Plesiomon can actually greatly hamper us by preventing us from playing Digimon by effects, which obviously shuts down our entire game plan. So Kimeramon is there just to kind of pull double duty in that regard. He is super nice, I think, as a 2 of. I wouldn't go above 2 just because since he's not blue, you can't really search him outside of things like Gomamon's just raw draw power. But as a 2 of, I think Chimera ties the deck together really well, so I'm going to be continuing to play 2 copies there. Alright, up into our level 6s, we have 4 copies of Plesiomon. Plesiomon from EX3 has a when digivolving effect. To play a blue level 3 Digimon or a level 4 or lower Digimon card with the aquatic trait from one of your blue Digimon's sources without paying the cost, then you can put a blue Digimon card from your hand under this Digimon as its bottom Digivolution source. Has an all turns effect inheritable. Once per turn, when you play a Digimon from a Digivolution source, return one of your opponent's Digimon with the same level as the played card to the bottom of its owner's deck. So Plesiomon is kind of our centerpiece level 6 currently. Unfortunately, this deck doesn't really have an aggressive level 6 at the moment. It's pretty much just here to be set up for our following turn with Aegisdramon. Sadly, Plesio doesn't really do a tremendous amount on his own, besides, of course, just playing out an extra body, which is not terrible. But in order to get the full payoff for Plesio, obviously we want to be going into Aegisdramon. Now that over-reliance on level 7s is probably why this deck isn't super fantastic in the meta right now. It is a little too reliant on cards that can be a little inconsistent, but Plesio does a really good job at its job. Being able to not only play a Digimon body out, but being able to tuck a Digimon into the sources for our next play is also really nice to do. So even though it's not fantastic, I do think Plesiomon is still probably the best, obviously level 6. It is made explicitly for this archetype, and having that removal effect that we can abuse on our opponent's turn as well as our own to keep the board controlled obviously is going to be nice as well. But the Digimon we're going to want to be tucking with Plesiomon more often than not is going to be our other level 6. I am still playing 3 copies of MetalSeadramon from BT2. This is a very old card. It is 11 to play, 3 to digivolve, and has 10,000 DP. On play, return up to 2 of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon to their hands, and has a Your Turns effect. This Digimon can't be blocked by your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards. Very rarely is that second effect going to come up, but just keep it in mind, because if your opponent isn't aware of it, you may steal a game or 2 here and there, but in general, I do think MetalSeadramon is still the best secondary level 6, just because it is the best thing that we are going to be able to play off of our Aegisdramon currently. Having that on play combined with our Plesiomon Inherit, basically just going to make sure that we are getting rid of potentially 3 bodies all in one move. Being able to get 2 of our opponent's level 4 or lowers bounced while tucking a level 6 to the bottom of their deck. MetalSeadramon is going to be our best card for those big tempo swings. There honestly isn't too much more to talk about. MetalSeadramon is not the best card in the world, but it is kind of the best of a bad situation currently. I do think the other level 6, again, coming out in EX6, is going to absolutely replace this card. In fact, will probably take over Plesiomon's role as the primary level 6 for the archetype. But for the time being, this is going to be your primary combo. You want to go into Plesiomon, tuck a MetalSeadra, and then you're going to head up into your level 7s, which we can go ahead and move into. And we're going to, of course, be playing 3 copies of our primary level 7, Aegisdramon. The namesake for the deck, Aegis, is 14 to play, 4 to digivolve, has 14,000 DP. When digivolving, you can play a blue level 3 Digimon, or a Digimon with Seadramon in its name or aquatic in its traits, from one of your blue Digimon's sources without paying the memory cost. On the opponent's turn, once per turn, if your opponent plays a Digimon, you can activate this card's when digivolving effect. So on both turns, you have potential to be playing out those extra bodies, which can then hopefully get rid of other bodies thanks to our Plesiomon Inheritable. Aegisdramon is kind of this weird combination of hyper aggro while also being control. Being able to play out so many bodies while still being able to control our opponent's board state with our various effects makes this a really unique deck. It's really, really cool. I think Aegisdramon, again, is a super unique card. It's definitely unique for a level 7. Now, Aegisdramon can play out any of our level 3s, but do make sure you keep track of the fact that it is limited on what kind of level 4s and 5s and even 6s that it can cheat out. It has to specifically have Seadramon in name, which means our MetalSeadramon, despite being a cyborg, does qualify, but it cannot cheat out things like, for instance, our Coelamon. Coelamon is the only card in this deck in our level 4 slot that cannot be cheated out by Aegis, and of course we can't play Kimeramon either, but despite Coelamon being an ancient fish Digimon, it is not considered under the aquatic umbrella and is not able to be cheated out. Coelamon is in here specifically for its raw stats. It is not in here as a blocker that can be cheated out by Aegis. So please make sure you are keeping that in mind. Sadly, that is a limitation the deck has, but that still leaves us with plenty of very viable options that we can cheat into play. So that's going to about do it for Aegis. We are playing one other level 7, and that's going to be a single copy of Omnimon Merciful mode. Omnimon is 15 to play, 6 to Digivolve, and 15,000 DP. When Digivolving for each card with the Mega trait in its Digivolution sources, you can delete one of your opponent's Digimon, then place 10 cards from their trash at the bottom of their deck in any order. At the start of your turn, you trash the top card of this Digimon, which means it basically de-Digivolves itself, in order to trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. One of the things that Blue does struggle with is having hard removal. So even though we do have some removal options in the form of things like Plesio and Chimera, we do want to make sure that we have other options for potentially handling threats on board that can cause our deck problems. Omnimon Merciful mode is going to be, in my opinion, our best answer there. The fact that it can destroy bodies for every Mega trait in the sources means that if our Plesio tucks a MetalSeadramon and we are not passing turn and go straight into Merciful mode, that's going to give us immediately the ability to pop 2 bodies. Any 2 bodies, mind you. So it's very, very good in that regard. And of course, he is still one of very few cards in the game that has trash interaction. Tucking 10 cards from your opponent's trash, don't forget that. That is a very relevant effect that can be very impactful against certain strategies. So I'm going to be playing my single copy of Omnimon. He's kind of a tech choice to help us deal with some troublesome matchups, some troublesome tech cards. And yeah, that's going to do it for our level 7s. We're going to be playing 3 Aegis and 1 Merciful mode. The rest of the deck is basically just consistency pieces. We are playing 2 copies of Davis Motomiya. A memory setter with an on-play effect, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You can add a blue and a green Digimon among them to your hand, the rest go to the bottom. He's really the only Tamer that is going to be able to generically grab any of our blue Digimon, so being able to check the top 3, hopefully add a piece that we are missing, and then we get a memory setter to sit and play after that, so he's memory advantage while also being a consistency tool. That's pretty much it. There's really not too much more to talk about with Davis. He's really just in here for that. He's going to help smooth our draws out and make sure we have plays on our turn. And finally, we are going to be playing 3 copies of Blue Memory Boost. We're not going to be playing the training cards just because even though we do Digivolve quite a bit, hard playing things, especially since we have a WaruSeadramon, is obviously going to be a big deal as well. We're also going to be able to play, for instance, things like Tobiumon. If we have a level 4, let's just go into Kimeramon. And we're honestly not playing other blue cards that we desperately want to be seeing anyways. So we're going to be playing Memory Boost to check the extra cards and give us raw memory, which is going to be much more helpful for this archetype than a training card. But yeah, that's pretty much going to do it. Aegisdramon is, as I said, a very cool archetype. I think this deck is going to be really interesting to see as we move through the formats, and this deck does continue to get new support, how that support is able to influence it. This deck feels so close. Like, it's got such a great baseline for support here. I do think one of the things this deck is really going to benefit from is seeing the X-antibody line for Seadramon. A long while ago when I first started the channel, I made a 5 things I would like to see in the Digimon TCG list, and a lot of those cards have actually come out at this point, but one of the ones we are still missing is the X antibody line for Seadramon. Betamon X, Seadramon X, MegaSeadramon X, and GigaSeadramon. I think that the X antibody mechanic just plays with the game plan for Aegisdramon so insanely well, where we're basically doubling the number of bodies that we're able to play out, and goodness only knows what the effects of those secondary bodies are even going to be. If we get the Seadramon X line and the effects really well support Aegisdramon, I could honestly see Aegisdramon becoming a tier threat. I mean, look at all of the other rogue strategies that are already currently doing things like Numamon and Sukamon, decks that people have been laughing at for multiple formats now, got a couple good waves of support, and now they're actually like meta threats. I honestly think Aegisdramon can have the exact same thing happen. Really, we just need one good wave of support. And whether it's the new support that's coming EX6 or not, I mean, only time's going to tell. I would really like to see the EX6 support do well. It's very, very strong, and if you build around it, can be very powerful. So Yeah, I guess just kind of stay tuned, and I will definitely be continuing to update this list as we move through the different formats. I love Seadramon's evolution line. It makes me very happy that we've finally got enough Seadramon cards that this deck can kind of become a Seadramon deck. And that is going to about do it. If you guys liked this deck profile, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my next upload. If you are a big Aegisdramon fan and you want to tell me about some really cool tech cards that you've been using in your personal list, please leave those down in the comments below. I love hearing all of the different ways people approach this archetype. Just like MegaSeadramon, it's not solved. There are lots of support cards you can use, and I'd love to hear how it's been working for you. With that, I am an avid herpetologist. I do hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.